Okay. All right. Good morning. My name's Sarah Martin from the Environment Agency in the UK, and we've been doing some work on UK-specific, a potential UK-specific model. So the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs has commissioned a short scoping study looking into uses and other exposure models with a view to identifying potential modifications with particular relevance to the UK regulatory needs. And I'll give you an outline of the work that we've been doing so far. So the aims of the scoping study is to review the existing uses model and compare it with other environmental models. For example, those used in plant protection products and by other organisations, for example, the Canadian government, that deliver similar outputs. Now, we're not wanting to replicate the work that ECHA are doing. So when we had notified ECHA that we were thinking of this project, they actually invited us to come onto the organising committee. We arrived late, so apologies, not been that involved so far. The scoping project is considering how the model could be improved to take account of the best available science and make it more user-friendly. There's some comments yesterday about the user interface not being the nicest. And in particular emphasis for us is how we can use it in the UK-specific arena, looking at our particular geography, our dilutions. Obviously, we're a very wet country. Its use is aimed at the whole of Europe, so we're thinking how can we adapt it for our particular geography and climate. We're also thinking maybe that this could be combined with work that we're doing under the Water Framework Directive. We've got a lot of information and work being done on models for that, so could some of this be combined with a model for exposure estimation? We also want to consider is there more realistic scenarios for protection of predators and the human food chain, and adding elements such as groundwater assessment, and replacing the old A and B tables, for instance, with SPERCs as they become available. We're also interested, and it was mentioned again yesterday, about sensitivity analysis. That is a particular area that we are very interested in some work that we've done on other aspects, and particularly substance evaluation and restrictions. So, as a regulator, we need a better tool than those that we have at the moment to assess the impact of different risk management options. So, for example, we're thinking it could be used to have a handle on the time it would take for concentrations in key media to reduce to a specific value following the cessation, a restriction, for example, from a particular source. Or looking at how we could have reduction in emissions over time. As part of the assessment, we're thinking about improving the user interface and providing graphical or pictorial outputs. We'd like to explore whether it's possible to put a GIS layer, maybe just for a representative catchment, as this will help us visualize impacts, but also look at identifying monitoring sites, potential monitoring sites, again linking it back into Water Framework Directive. And the project will provide recommendations for the development and rank each of the potential development options with a priority based on impact, likely programming difficulties, and availability of input data, which I think is the difficulty that we've all got. So the work plan so far, we only began in April, and our contractor has been interviewing a number of stakeholders. So the contractor is CEH, who have lots of experience in this area. And as part of the project, they also provided feedback and actually are attending this workshop with us. And they will build the model. They will build a report that gives us information on whether or not on how we could improve this and help us to prioritise what we could do. So far, the work is the stakeholder interviews, and I will go through that information on the feedback we've had so far in a moment. So we've managed to build links with ECHA so that we can keep in close contact with the work that is happening through this project and through our own project to make sure that there is no duplication. We started thinking about our project before we were even aware that ECHA was doing theirs. So we've been working and planning this since last summer. Now that I'm on the organising committee, that means that we've got much better links and we can actually talk to each other about progress on both sides to make sure there is no duplication. And hopefully we can provide an important input into ECHA's project. As I said, we're looking at it from a UK-specific focus, but what we're thinking is that if we do manage to do a UK-specific model, then the intention is to share it so that other member states could put their catchments into it. That's our current thinking. We will make it available. It is a regulatory emphasis model, but anybody could use it if they wish to. As yet, there's no decision being made on whether or not we will even go ahead with this. Part of the work is to see whether or not it's possible, and we'll then start thinking about whether or not we can do it, looking at resources, which is always a difficult one. So, the initial findings. I think a lot of our findings echo the comments that were made yesterday. Auditability. As a regulator, that's very important to us, that when we get uses files from registrants, we need to see what assumptions have been made. We need to be able to pick it apart, make sure that we're happy with all the assumptions and the defaults that's been used and where things have been changed. That's not easy now. We would like to make it easier. More intuitive data input. It's easy. I find it very easy to make mistakes in uses, and if we can make it easier, hopefully it'll be easier to use, and therefore less mistakes will be made. Improvement in emissions estimation, including improved defaults and ability to provide a range of different emission scenarios. Sensitivity analysis, but also identifying the parameters that are the most sensitive, so the ones where we've got to be really sure about how accurate they are, so that if there's a small change, it has a massive impact on the output of the model. Other comments that were made were, certainly in the UK, there was little cross-government working. So we have our models, and even within the Environment Agency, there's not much working across the teams, because each of us have models for our own purpose. And one of the things that we wanted to think about was whether or not we could make a model that was a bit more applicable to more areas within our own government. It's something we're thinking about. We don't know where that will go. We're also wanting to think about temporal and spatial distribution, so identifying sources, point sources, and being able to model what happens if you turn off a point source. Ability to handle complex mixtures and chemicals with wider chemical property space, such as the ionizables. This is sounding very much like yesterday, actually. So these are all the comments that we came out with. The contractor hasn't finished the interviews yet, so we are still getting more input into the project. Following this meeting, they're then going to be putting together the report for us with some suggestions, and that report will be shared with ECHA to make sure that we're not duplicating anything. And as part of the committee, I'll be feeding back to the rest of the organising committee. So that is our project. So I'll say we've made no decision. We're still finding out a lot of information. So any questions?